new from Vinegar Syndrome, and a movie box set that I kind of had a little bit of trouble with was the Cardona Collection Volume 1. Now, I loved the televised terror box set, and I was eager to go into this one. It has 3 movies in it: Treasure of the Amazon, Triangle, The Bermuda Mystery, and Cyclone. And of course, I just put on the first movie on this one, but just is going to be a review for the entire set, and that movie was The Treasure of the Amazon. Now, I kind of liked this movie. I liked it a lot. It had Stuart Whitman as Gringo, who was a wonderful protagonist character, a kind of grizzled, no-nonsense man who's almost been driven mad by the jungle. He's got a backstory of going in there and trying to get gold at some point, and came out with the 3 shrunken heads of his comrades and no gold. So he just kind of lives off the land and is just kind of getting by. We're introduced to a couple of other characters who are out to find their fortune, who are there to find them gold in them their hills, and they want to kind of grab the Gringo and help him on their adventure to get rich. There's also other stories of various other people that end up in the island already, being chased by the indigenous species that are cannibalistic, or well, they just like to cut heads off. Everybody should have a hobby. That's these tribespeople hobby, just cutting off people's heads, and it's got a great cast and it looks particularly wonderful. Donald Pleasance shows up at a certain point as a Nazi. That is just amazing. He's just a bad guy there for gold as well. And we get an obligatory appearance by Hugo Stiglitz, who kind of shows up in these movies as well in a small role. He's like the kind of riverboat captain. You've got all these various factions travelling to the same, it seems to be well-travelled part of the Amazon to get gold and try and get their riches. And I like this one. It's not anything ridiculously gory for cannibal movies. It does have these cannibals and they do chop off heads a lot, but you never really see a lot of gore. There is some within this one, and it's kind of fun as well. You get that idea of this tribe that is feared by the rest of the tribes. You get some wonderful photography in this. You get to see the worst in human nature as they start to steal and rob from one another at certain points. But I loved Whitman as the Gringo. I loved the way the movie looked. It was a little overlong, but it was something that I really was happy to watch. Something that I would probably go back and watch again, which was a good film. Next up, we have the Bermuda Triangle, which it was one of those movies where you have a captain of a boat who's travelling into the Bermuda Triangle, and wacky stuff's going to happen. Initially, they find this doll floating in the water, the little girl who is on this boat, captained by John Huston, I believe, or he's the person that's bought the boat or hired it. And the little girl has this doll that seems to talk to her and tell her spooky things. So you've got a supernatural horror film here, as these people find that a lot of weirdness is going on as they have a trip out to the Bermuda Triangle to search relics under the sea for something or other. Doesn't really matter because it wasn't that interesting. It was one of those movies that just kind of ticked by. It seemed very tropey. It wanted to be a mystery Bermuda Triangle movie and also a kind of supernatural horror with this spirit imbued doll that was killing various people and telling people when they're going to die and just freaking people out because it's a spooky little girl talking about a killer doll. I found this movie a bit of a drag. Wasn't terrible, it just was over long. It's 112 minutes and it needed a good half hour shaved off this. A little bit more blood and guts to create something a little bit more exploitative and fun, but other than that it's kind of bland and banal. There was some scenes I was interested in, particularly the underwater one where there's an earthquake and there's all these strange columns that start to collapse on people under the water, which was really well done. There's certain lines that just felt super flat and uninteresting, and it felt like something I had seen before. It wasn't fresh, it wasn't new, it was derivative, and not even good derivative. It was elongated. It was a long movie watching this one that dragged on, that I just prayed to make it to the end too. I don't want to see this again. It was a bit of a miss for me. Not a bad movie by any means, just tedious. So we'll jump on to the last movie, which is Cyclone. And this one is all about a cyclone, surprise, surprise, that comes to decimate an island with all these visiting vacationers. We spend a lot of our time aboard a boat that has been stranded out in the water, put off the kind of shipping lane that it was on, so there's nobody going by. They're kind of running out of water. It's a group of tourists, and it's a survival movie. We're pretty much watching these people slowly come to the realization that they're going to have to be cannibalistic at some point. They don't want to be, but that's what they're going to have to do. And again, this one is over 100 minutes, and it is long, and it is unsurprising. It is familiar, derivative of similar type movies that doesn't offer much in the form of surprises. It has some nice sequences though, particularly all the storm at the start of the movie. Makes it feel as if it's going to be something far grander and far more exciting. I loved just simple shots of this little boat they have that has a canopy over the top that has strips of human flesh drying out in the sun on it, which is just a horrible idea. There is some really pragmatic and fun moments as we see human nature at its worst. There is one where a woman has a dog and the people are getting angry that she's sharing the precious water with it. So one guy is so mad that he just picks the dog up and throws it in the ocean, only for a man to jump in and save the dog. And when they're questioned why they did that, he's like, well, why are you throwing the dog away? It's obviously food. It just goes from bad situation to worse. And it's a movie that just kind of ticked along again. Hit all familiar beats, didn't do anything super interesting, just seemed content in doing the bare minimum, and the characters weren't that memorable. Even Carol Baker that appears in the movie wasn't that great, and for some reason the end of the movie they have everybody in the water and they're just like, you know what, let's get some sharks in here, we'll have a feeding frenzy, and most of the cast that's about to be saved will be eaten for lunch. And they promptly are. It was bland, again, uninteresting, just kind of typical of these kind of movies that just kind of plodded along, did nothing special and hit all familiar beats. You could kind of tell where everything was going to go and it fell into place without any surprises. I did like the way it was shot. Certain scenes had some really nice moments to them. The way they used items in the foreground or the background was particularly nice, but I'm clutching at straws here. The Cardona set, I've not looked at the extras as yet. To be honest, I mainlined all three movies in this set back to back to back, and to be honest, it was probably the worst thing I could have done. I was a little bit afraid that I may never have went back to this if I didn't just hit them, so I watched them. It's not the greatest of sets, and knowing that there's another 2 Cardona sets coming puts a little bit of worry into me. These movies weren't bad, they were just long, overindulgent and tedious to get through. With the exception of Treasure of the Amazon, which I kind of liked, but even that was just a 2.5, maybe push it up to a 3 on a second watch kind of film. But I'd love to know if you've got the Cardona collection, what you thought of it. Let me know how you rank the movies. For me, I think I would go Treasure of the Amazon, Cyclone and the Bermuda Triangle thing. Let me know your thoughts in the comment box below, and I will see you next time on Man v Film.